various purposes. Soylent Greening is the title of this story by Scott M. Peterson. There's a movie worth looking up called Soylent Green. Charlton Heston stars in it, along with Edward G. Robinson, in 1973. It's about dwindling resources on a dying planet sometime in the future, like today. As food becomes harder to find, a delicious new product from the Soylent Corporation hits the market. Soylent Green. Right about then, people started disappearing, leaving fewer and fewer mouths to feed, which oddly enough coincided with the Soylent Green shortage. Riverside Grange number 861 is located in California. That's according to the California State Grange, CSG website anyway. But exactly where is another question. A search at the Registry of Charitable Trusts shows no such entity. Ditto for the Secretary of State and National Center for Charitable Statistics. Poof, it's nowhere to be found. There's another Grange in Riverside County, according to the CSG website. That's Rubidoux Grange number 611. Okay. According to the IRS, it's located P.O. Box 1112 in San Jacinto, along with Grange number 31, which isn't listed on the CSG website. Since both Granges have websites with email addresses, I sent them each an email to find out more. I picked Riverside Grange number 861 for a reason. According to my information, California State Granges, Granges are numbered sequentially, so there should be, at minimum, 861 of them, at least historically. Members have died off over time, but what about the Grange Hall properties? What happened to them? Fortunately, the CSG keeps good records, sort of. The website dates the organization back to 1873. Sets of annual meeting minutes are available from 1955 through 2015. The first time Riverside number 861 got mentioned was in 2015. And heck, it didn't even have a number yet, leaving it wet behind the ears, so to speak. But the number of chapters in attendance at that meeting was only 18. That told me that 843 Grange Halls were missing in action. So when did they all start disappearing? In 1955, nearly 300 chapters attended the annual convention. The exact number was 291. According to the meeting minutes, it was held in Sacramento. By 1980, that number had dropped to 201, and by 2010, only 51 chapters showed up, which was kind of a bummer for attendees, all of which wound up paying for the once-a-year convention, not to mention the 24/7 overhead. In the early days, it was no big deal. The expenses for 1955 amounted to less than 10 grand. At an average of 10 members per chapter, it cost about $3 a head. Then things changed. In 2015, the California State Grange was running hot. Expenses declared under penalty of perjury on the Form 990 ran $298,650. Now divide that by 200 members and see what you get. I don't know about your abacus, but mine came up with nearly $1,500 a year per Grange member. And since dues ran only $35 a year, you can see the problem. But where was the California State Grange getting all that money? Ukiah Grange number 419 couldn't attend the 2015 convention because it had been dissolved 10 years earlier. Its property on South State Street in Ukiah had been sold to Jim Mayfield and family for $250,000 in the year 2000. $100,000 of that was a kickback to the State Grange, laundered through a fake construction project in Sacramento. Fort Bragg Grange number 672 didn't show up either, nor did any Grange with property, because they'd all gotten wind of what happened in Ukiah. State Grange officials had been depositing the proceeds from Grange Hall sales into something called restricted accounts before 2005, including those of Gridley Grange number 457. That was dissolved in 2002. CSG definitely needed the money, but they couldn't just take it, so they passed a motion at the 2005 state convention to borrow it. You get the picture. From that point on, I think I'd put a comma there, the supersized cookie jar got renamed the Asset Management Account and was raided at will. Of course, that's when lawyers got involved. Before 2005, legal fees had never exceeded $1,000, but afterward they fucking skyrocketed. By 2014, lawyers cost a whopping $293,037 for one California State Grange and $36,901 for another. That's right. In 2014, there were two California State Granges, two CSGs, and those costs were only for the state level. At the National Grange, it ran 2/3 of its income. 2/3 of its income, $743,490. Now, where do you think all that money came from? All of it was borrowed from the newly minted asset management account, which in turn had come from the sale of Grange halls. The California State Grange was eating itself alive. Worthy Master Ed Komsky acknowledged that issue in his address to the 2015 convention in a roundabout way, stating, "Masters of Granges attempted to sell Grange halls and assets. Some actually succeeded in doing so, taking property and assets that were not theirs to take. Duh! What Komsky didn't say was who did it and who wound up with all the money." In the same address, he promised that all would be resolved with a set of brand new bylaws up for adoption at that very convention. The 2011 convention hadn't gone so well for state Grange officials. Try as they might, only 49 chapters attended, leaving them without a quorum. Yet miraculously, in 2015, when only 18 chapters attended, there was a quorum. How? By downsizing the total number of chapters to the eligible number of chapters, meaning whoever showed up. "I am not your king," Komsky wrote, "but the one you elected to lead the efforts in fulfilling your directives." Some Grange members didn't see it that way. That includes Bruce Broderick of the former Fort Bragg Grange number 672. According to Broderick, Komsky formed a second California State Grange to create super Granges, vehicles that could enable sale of surrounding Grange halls. Komsky portrays himself as a victim of the legal squabbles. Broderick disagrees. Quote, "The truth of the matter is that this conflict was conceived and orchestrated entirely by Ed Komsky over a period of many years," he said, he being Broderick. Ground zero in that conflict today is Bennett Valley in Sonoma County, where state and national Grange officials filed a lawsuit over possession of the Grange Hall there. On December 13, 2016, Bennett Valley Grange number 16 officials changed the name of their organization to Bennett Valley Guild, thereby preventing the sale of its property. The lawsuit, dated June 27, 2017, relies on an earlier court ruling demanding that all Grange property be returned to the California State Grange. Guild officials don't contest that ruling and insist the California State Grange never owned it in the first place. They claim is supported by CSG's Form 990s for both organizations, where the Bennett Valley property isn't listed. If that lawsuit succeeds, it's sure to trigger a costly appeal, something that'll cost both the state and national Granges more cash than they've got on hand. Broderick has an idea where that'll come from. Quote, "Ukiah Autumn Leaves was quietly mortgaged for $750,000 last year," Broderick told me. That's what's floating their lawsuit. He turned out to be correct. The Ukiah HUD complex was mortgaged for that amount last year by Grange officials. They won't say what it was for. Getting angels to dance on the head of a pin is one thing, but Komsky's lawsuit is a horse of a different color. It greases the wheels of justice by contending, quote, "the majority of the chapters remained members of the Grange," end quote, when in fact they didn't. That's evident in minutes of the 2011 convention, where 49 chapters didn't constitute a majority. The purpose of new chapters, like Riverside number 861, is to create the appearance of a majority. That explains why Mr. Komsky created an entirely new chapter in Fort Bragg number 572, for the gullible Peeler family. Don Peeler accepted his framed certificate, the 2017 convention, without reading it, meaning he and his compliant wife could be relied on to vote with Komsky no matter what, and that certificate wasn't the only swindle for Komsky's flock. The biggest one is on the website. Grange members rely on the State Grange website for updates on their various lawsuits, but as can be seen on the latest lawsuit, they left something important out. That's a December 5, 2016 ruling that the California State Guild is recognized as a viable standalone corporation and has been since 1946, something that Komsky has no authority over. Nonetheless, he never stops trying, mostly by keeping his soldiers in the dark, swearing that the Guild is, quote, "an entity of unknown form," end quote, doing that under oath, not personally, but by proxy, through another compliant individual named Nancy Cadigan of Sebastopol Grange number 306, thus supporting Broderick's contention about super Granges taking over smaller ones. The odd thing about Sebastopol Grange number 306 is the fact that it never attended the 2015 convention. meaning that it had no input whatsoever into Mr. Komsky's new bylaws. The delegates who did had no skin in the game. Only one was from Mendocino County. That's Whitesboro Grange number 766, represented by husband and wife alternates, that's in quotes, Bob and Maria Canclini. Some of the words are pushed together in this article because when I grabbed it as text, the words are Maria L-I-C-E, Maria Liche. Is that a real name? That's a pretty name. Okay, I'm just going to read it as if that's a name and not a problem. Bob and Maria Liche Canclini. According to Grange records, Whitesboro was hanging by a thread in Y2K with only 3 members. Yet somehow, the Canclini household managed to show up and vote for the newfangled rules, oblivious to the impact on their Grange Hall. Under those new rules, Whitesboro Grange number 766 would be absorbed into Komsky's Mendocino Super Grange number 572, the one run by those nice people with the Confederate flag flying from their front porch, Don and Maria. So Maria here, M-A-R-I-L-L-A, is how it looks there. Peeler. Right along with 15 other Mendocino County Granges, to be sold off one by the worthy master himself, Ed Komsky. No quorum will be called for that session, and no votes will be taken. It'll all be done under the new bylaws by decree and for the good of the order, along with every other Grange Hall in the Golden State. Jesus, this is like Hydra in the Marvel comic strip TV shows. This is an amazing story. As Komsky said in his 2015 convention address, it's no big deal. Use asset for asset. Sell a hall and build a hall. Live and operate efficiently, end quote. In other words, quote, we need to downsize people, but it's painful. So let me take care of it. And that's where we are today, letting Ed Komsky deal the cards. But look at this in poker parlance. Years ago, someone started dealing blackjack at a table with a 6-deck shoe. Over time, cards started disappearing. Now we're down to 18 cards and a dealer who pulls them out of his sleeve. The house has lost $3 million and counting, with a 50-50 chance of losing the entire casino on one bad hand. Put yourself in the pit boss's position. What would you do? The judges in this case will be immortalized no matter how they decide. United States District Judge William B. Shub will be remembered for his decisions against the casino long after he's gone. Ditto for the appeals court justices who review this matter, and possibly all the way up to the United States Supreme Court. Do members of a democratic society have the right of self-determination, or are they subject to foreign rule? Does a duly elected representative answer to the people, or is it the other way around, like it was before the U.S. Constitution, or after? Bruce Broderick of the Fort Bragg Guild answered my questions in a heartbeat. The New State Grange is an extension of a corrupt governing body that has lost its way and is only interested in continuing its way of doing business that serves big ag and other corporate entities, end quote. I never got a response to my email inquiry to Riverside Grange number 861. It was the same with Rubidoux Grange. That's an interesting. Rubidoux, Rubidoux Grange number 611. Crickets. So whatever they're doing, they aren't very proud of it. In the closing moments of Soylent Green, the hero, Thorne, discovers the truth, that the Soylent Corporation profited by turning human beings into groceries, kind of like Mr. Komsky does with chapters at the California State Grange today. In the final scene, Thorne shouts, "Soylent Green is people! Soylent Green is people!" That's pretty much what Broderick is saying about the California State Grange now. In the course of writing this article, I got a second-hand complaint about my reporting from a fellow I've never met, George Reinhardt. According to Mendocino County records, he's registered to vote here, so he can't be all bad. Apparently, he's detail-oriented, too, leading a 13-year-old effort to turn somebody else's land, the Fort Bragg Mill site, into something useful. For that, Mr. Reinhardt adheres to something called the Hanover Principles. They're a set of 9 guidelines about not just planning, but coexistence, the last of which, according to Wikipedia, is to, quote, seek constant improvement by the sharing of knowledge. With that in mind, I emailed Mr. Reinhardt a link to this article, inviting him to share his complaint with all my readers. I also expect Mr. Reinhardt to elaborate on the 6th Hanover Principle, which is eliminate the concept of waste. and precisely how that applies to the mill pond full of dioxin that's been flowing into the Pacific Ocean for, say, 13 years. Along with the fifth Hanover principle, create safe objects of long-term value, to give him a chance to identify who poisoning the food chain creates long-term value for. Until Mr. Reinhardt can respond, I'll expect him to abide by the first Hanover principle, which is insist on the right of humanity and nature to coexist in a healthy, supportive, diverse, and sustainable condition. Translation, backstabbing is bullshit, George. Backstabbing is bullshit, George. P.S. The illustrated version of this article with snarky photo captions and all the links to background information, tinyurl.com/Grange Breakfast.